Hello.
Hello.
Look who's back.
Peter, you're back. Where have you been?
I have been doing what I'm going to be doing, which is working really hard, tasting wine, pretty much committed to working with Weekly Wine to bring delightful things to their customers. I do love tasting with you guys.
Welcome back.
Hi, welcome back.
Ben bought some very interesting wines, and so we're going to do two flights, right?
Right.
A pair of white wines.
White wine. One's just regional wine, but very famous wine producer, top producer from Burgundy. And then the other one is Premier Cru. And then it happens to be that wine is more expensive than the Premier Cru. So I'm wanting to see if the winemaker is more important or the tier is more important.
I'm afraid I think I know the answer.
You do?
And I say I'm afraid for a reason.
And in many parts of the world, this isn't the case, but in Burgundy, producer is usually of the utmost importance. And there's a number of reasons for that, right? The inheritance laws are such that vineyards have been chopped in many, many different pieces. So even if somebody has a piece of a famous vineyard, they may not be caring for it well, or it may not be one of the better pieces of that famous vineyard. And again, production techniques matter. You would think that they should matter less in a place like Burgundy, which classically has been perhaps less manipulated than some heavier red wines, let's say. But we'll see.
I have a question. So the classification comes from the monks, right, or from a long time ago, the Premier Cru and the Grand Cru, correct?
Not so much from the monks, but yes, from a long time ago.
Yeah. Does it still make the same sense as before, or because of the climate change?
Did it ever make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think that the initial people who classified vineyards were the Benedictine monks. But then that became more ingrained into the culture, and then the government became involved in the classification of Burgundy. That all said, and that classification system is AC Bourgogne, which is the lowest classification. Then you can have village wines, Merceau. You can have Premier Cru, and then Grand Cru. And there's actually another layer that's less official of having named vineyards in a village that haven't quite made it to the Premier Cru.
So those are the LUDs, and it's up to the producers to decide what they fill the bottles with. But there are others now. There's Bourgogne, there's Bourgogne Haute Côte de Nuit, and Haute Côte de Beaune. And then there was a new one introduced in 2017, which is Bourgogne Côte d'Or. So almost the same rules as Burgundy, but just as Bourgogne, but just a tighter area. And each time the price goes up a little bit.
And back to your question, does that classification system still mean as much as, well, does it mean what it did, let's say 70 years ago or 40 years ago or even 20 years ago? And it doesn't, because the climate has changed so dramatically. What has happened is that the lesser wines, the AC Bourgogne, used to be pretty awful stuff, unless it happened to be a really fantastic vintage, one or two vintages a decade. And now those wines have improved dramatically. Though the question is that is a Grand Cru worth such a premium?
Exactly what Patrick has said. I remember when I first started tasting Bourgogne, the Haute Côte de Nuit or the Haute Côte de Beaune. Originally they were the Haute Côte. They got larger productions. They never could properly ripen them because it was cooler than Burgundy, and the wines didn't really get a good price. With global warming, the Haute Côtes are making some beautiful wine, and the price hadn't risen as much. So you're getting a whole lot of really good value there, which I'm sure will change. The same can be said of Chablis. For me, since 2008, 2014, the possible exception of 21, Chablis hasn't really hit the peaks that I like it to hit. But the great thing to come out of Chablis in that time was Petit Chablis, which was also, outside of the main Chablis area. But pretty much they didn't care all that much and they didn't get the ripeness. Well, now Petit Chablis is starting to trade for the same kind of price, $1 or $2 less then your entry level should be, because of the improvement in quality.
Okay, so we're going to taste these two wines. One is from Meursault, and the other is an AC Bourgogne, both from the same vintage. And the question is going to be, can we tell the difference? Pick out the one that's the Meursault versus the AC Bourgogne, and which wine is the better wine?
Just to sort of answer a question before we even taste the wine. The question of whether it's terroir or winemaking. Clearly, in this tasting, the producer of one of these wines believes that it is the winemaker. Believes that he, she has the right to charge considerably more for an entry-level appellation versus for a Premier Cru Meursault. There's no Grand Cru in Meursault, so that's the top in Meursault. That guy's already made the distinction or the qualification on this whole thing that he, the winemaker, is better than the terroir. Let's see.
We'll see. All right. Cheers.
Fine.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I mean, for me, one of these ones is very Meursault, and the other one's not.
I think one is very Meursault and the other one less Meursault.
Less or more so.
Less Meursault, yeah.
Let's just go around. One or two, which is the better wine?
There wasn't much in it for me. Number one, I found better.
Yeah, I think the number one is the Premier Cru. Way better than the second one, in my opinion.
I thought number one was better wine.
I thought number two was the better wine.
Oh, okay.
But number one was broader, was the one that, tasting it, I would say, okay, this is, barrel fermented, Premier Cru, Meursault. I love the elegance of the second wine, and I thought it was longer. But again, I think some of it is stylistic. If I had them blind, and not knowing where
You
they're
have
from,
them blind.
no, but I would not have considered Meursault for the second one. The first one is certainly Meursault to me.
To me as well.
It's bigger, it's richer, and some of that to me was a good thing, and some of it was less of a good thing. There was much more oak on it. I mean, you would think that for $360 there's going to be a lot of stuff on the wine, but maybe not so. I really don't know.
Yeah, could you read your note?
Very yellow.
Number one.
Some butter, some flowers, smooth, harmonious. Yes, the number one, the Meursault, for me. So the Premier Cru, Meursault.
Number one. Okay.
Number two, a lot of wood, although quiet, a slight oiliness to it. This is the one I found a little bland. Both of them were minerally. They're both very fine wines. I scored for 93 to 94 the first one, and 90 to 91 the second one. And I thought that one was the original one.
So us three like number one, and then Patrick likes number two.
So you and I, in terms of the identities of the ones, are the same. I think that this is the Premier Cru Meursault, and this is the Bourgogne.
Okay, but you think it's the better one.
Just because I find it to be more elegant.
Yeah.
But again, it's just preference.
The acidity is higher. On
And the acidity is higher. Yeah.
Definitely higher.
I find more tannin in the first one than in the second one.
But they're both really good quality.
Yeah. My scores would be flipped. I'd be more in that 93, 94 points for the second wine. Yeah. But again, some of that is a stylistic issue. I'm hoping that I'm wrong, and that the second wine is the less expensive wine, because that could be a bottle that I would consider buying. I'm not going to spend nearly $400 on a bottle of AC Bourgogne, no matter how delicious it's going to be. Yeah, it's a lot of money.
All right.
Should we open?
Let's see.
Let's see.
You open.
Yeah. Number one. Oh, it's a Premier Cru Meursault.
So that one is $120.
This is a $120. The alcohol 13.5.
19 was a nice year.
So Patrick, you're right. It's more expensive, number two, but it's a lighter style than number one.
Yeah.
And the Coche d'Uri.
Number two is Coche d'Uri, 2019, 12.5.
I love number two.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah. Well, Peter, you like number two style, right? The fresher, more acidity. But were you considering the Meursault?
I thought that number two was not fresher to me.
Oh, okay.
There was a fatness from Meursault on the first wine. It also looks more like Merceau. It's a deeper yellow. And there was a fatness on the wine that wasn't on the second wine, but there was a higher element of minerality in it for me. This one I found a bit broad, a little bit flat. Exactly the opposite
Yeah.
of what you found.
And what's interesting is that we tasted them in different orders. You tasted them 1-2.
Yeah.
I tasted 2-1. The reason being is that I said I'm going to taste the lighter colored wine, right?
Yeah.
With the expectation that this one has been manipulated in a different way. But I had down up on the nose, elegant, pear, slight tropical fruit, perfumed, and then when I tasted it, I had oatmeal, I had hazelnuts on the finish. That's pretty damn complex. And I thought the finish was very good, and I thought that the acidity was fresh. For me, it had much brighter acidity. I like elegance. I like acidity.
Right.
Yeah, but I think the first one has more acidity than the second one.
No, that second one definitely has more.
I'm not going to go back and
I know
taste
the
it
second
again
one
because
is
I'm
kind of
into
flat
trouble
to
with
me
the
on
reds.
the palate. I think the first one has more acidity and the second one is more flat. I don't know.
The same way I saw it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in my palate, the second one has higher acidity. The only type of acidity that is higher in the first wine was that there was a hint of VA on this is very clean. I didn't get any VA. And I got a little bit of VA, as you'd expect a wine that's been barrel fermented and a fair amount of time in barrel, bite in the back of my throat.
But would you pay 3 times more for the second wine?
Well, with your
Well,
money, yes.
Not really, because
Yeah.
We like the first one better.
I like the first one better. You know what I've been tasting a lot of lately is Oregon wine, and the quality improvement in Oregon Chardonnay
It's dramatic.
is dramatic. To the point where I'm starting to think that the top producers are producing better Chardonnay than Pinot. That's still a fledgling idea, but it's starting to penetrate into my skull.
What's interesting is that they used to be trying too much to produce Chardonnays similar to California Chardonnays. Andre and I were at a tasting just last week up in LA, and there were a couple of different Oregon producers, and the Chardonnays were delightful,
Yeah.
but so were the Pinots.
Yeah.
And again, they've learned that less is more.
But yeah, the Chardonnay, they were
And the
amazing.
Pinot guys, definitely. Have you guys ever had the opportunity to taste a crowd called Rose and Arrow?
No, I have not.
So they're outrageously expensive. When I say outrageously expensive, retail for the top ones 150 to 180. They are good. The Burgundians better start getting up and looking at it. I've never said that before. I've always said Burgundy is Burgundy, and for the longest time I found that the Oregonians were not doing a good job. They got to a certain level and it took them 10 years to make a leap and an improvement leap, but they're there now.
Oregon's now cooler.
Now cooler.
Yeah, I think it's cooler than
mean
Burgundy.
heat-wise?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, cooler than Burgundy.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
What did we do here, right? Besides bullshitting around and having fun tasting the wine, we showed that your expectations, right, you bring expectations as we did when we did the recent Costco Kirkland video. You bring expectations with you, thinking, this wine is going to have certain characteristics. Right? Both Peter and I had different preferences as to the wines we liked stylistically. That the first one is classic Premier Cru Merceau. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. He preferred the first wine because it was richer, and I preferred the second wine because it was more elegant. Some of that is just a stylistic thing. I think with you folks, you were expecting, and this is a reasonable expectation, you're thinking, if one wine costs nearly three times what the other one is, it's got to have more stuff.
3 times more complex than the other one.
No, that's what the problem is. The problem is take a 20-point score. You score a wine 18 out of 20. A wine that scores 19 out of 20 is not 1/18th better. It's 35 or 40% better. And a wine that scores 20 out of 20 is maybe 6 times better. So you get very little for that extra point,
Yeah.
except price.
Yeah.
Well, again, we tasted the 2 Vaccarat last time, right? And one was richer, deeper, and one was incredibly pretty, right? The most beautiful, pretty Grenache fruit. And we assumed that the more expensive wine would be the one that was richer and deeper. And that can often be the case, but there's a movement around the world. A lot of people, particularly young people, are not wanting to drink these heavy, extracted, big wines, and they're going for lighter style wines. Some top producers are producing wines in a lighter style.
I must admit, generally speaking, I do describe myself the way Patrick's just described himself, as a guy who believes more in elegance and complexity than in power and punch. So I guess it just, depends. When I have a look at this, what was the question we were trying to answer? The question we were trying to answer, one of the questions was, does the producer trump the terroir? And the answer is absolutely, unassailably, maybe. That's always the answer, by the way.
When comparing it to Meursault, of all the white wines in Burgundy, Meursault is the richest and the one that has more winemaker tricks up their sleeve: barrel fermentation, lees stirring, new oak. And you get less of that in other parts of Burgundy.
Oh, absolutely.
And, my own preference, right, usually, is that some people love Meursault. I like Meursault, but there are other parts of other white Burgundies that I love more, right?
Yeah, I'm with Patrick. I'm a great fan, actually not so much of the Montrachets, but for me, and it's also value for money comparatively speaking, I love Corton because of the elegance, the complexity, the relative chiseled nature of the wine. It's a stark contrast to Meursault.
I agree. Except that in Corton, what I find is that you have to kiss a number of very expensive frogs before you find a prince.
Just like in life.
Just like in life. Yeah. So we had fun, right?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's
if
fun.
somebody's paying $330, and then if they were expecting richer style, they would be disappointed with the bottle. But if they were looking for the elegance,
then they're going to be happy.
Yeah.
And again, I've not gone through and had Côche d'Or, a whole slew of them,
Yeah,
right?
and me neither.
And so I can't say what their current style is. My suspicion is that they are taking a more elegant approach.
And my suspicion is that there's a bunch of wine in there that could get a higher appellation if they wanted to.
Yes.
Why would you bother to bottle something as Meursault at $700 or $800 a bottle when you know you can only sell a certain number of bottles? If you can put some of the stuff you're not so happy with into your Bourgogne and you know you're getting $360 for it, so.
Though I think it even goes beyond that, because by the style of this wine, it has been made in a very different way than classic Meursault. So it's not as if they took some lesser, some Meursault that's been made as Meursault. I think they may have taken, probably took Meursault fruit.
Well, maybe not, but yeah.
And used it in a different way.
Whatever it is, they've got a following. They can charge those kind of prices and sell the wine. Hats off to them. They're doing a good job. I'm just saying.
I
It's
thought it was
still a lot of
delicious.
money.
okay.
So, thumbs up for us. Spread the word.
Give us like and subscribe. All right.
And our next video is going to be much more substantial. We're doing single producer, single vintage red Burgundies from the 2020 vintage, spanning all the way from least appellation all the way up to Grand Cru. So it should be fun.
All right.
Cheers.
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 Cheers.